Greetings all. Welcome to Aquarian Diary. I'm your host, John Irving. It is May 10th, 2023. There will be graphics on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. We are in a period of a lot of change. Pluto made its first ingress since the 1700s into Aquarius this year in March. Saturn entered Pisces for 3 years, also commencing in March. In the near term, Mercury goes direct in Taurus on May 14th. Jupiter enters Taurus on May 16th. Mars enters Leo on May 20th. And Pluto retrogrades back into Capricorn on June 11th through January 20th of 2024. There's another major shift coming up in 2023, and that is the North Node will be moving from Taurus into Aries. And that starts on July 17th of 2023. The North Node always moves in a retrograde fashion. That is, it goes backwards relative to the orbit of the planets. So it'll move backwards from Taurus into Aries. There's actually two components to the nodal axis. There is the North Node and the South Node, which is polar opposite, or 180 degrees apart. The nodes will spend 18.6 months in each sign, and will orbit all 12 signs in 18.6 years. The North Node began its transit of Taurus on January 18th of 2022, and will complete that transit on July 17th of 2023. At which point it will commence transiting Aries all the way through January 11th of 2025. Very briefly, the North Node has an expansive or highly energetic nature. It is highly charged, and it has almost a compulsive quality about it. Whereas the South Node, its polar opposite, has a diminishing or deflating energy about it. So while the North Node was transiting Taurus, the South Node was transiting Scorpio. Again, from January of 2022 through July of 2023. Interestingly, I had actually recorded an episode just before the North Node began its transit of Taurus, and I worked on it multiple times. And at that time, there were all of these circumstances that kept getting in the way or blocking me from completing this. It was extremely frustrating. I talked a lot about what was going to happen with the North Node transiting Taurus. After multiple attempts, because of work and all kinds of other issues, I just gave up out of sheer frustration. It's funny, as I record this right now, the street cleaner has driven by 2 or 3 times, and the neighbors pulled out some loud machine they never use. Here we go again. But in that recording from early January of 2022, I stated that one of the possibilities was that we would see land grabs. And of course, on February 24th of 2022, just over a month after the North Node entered Taurus, Russia invaded Ukraine. Here's an exact clip of me saying that back in early January 2022. So I would think that land grabs and territorial disputes could be amplified during this period. There's a few situations in the world that are prominent at the time of this recording like, for example, China and Taiwan and Russia and the Ukraine. And so there could be possibly conflicts around matters of territory. That was an unedited clip. My previous episode discussed Jupiter transiting Taurus and Jupiter's more recent transit of Aries. I encourage you to listen to that to familiarize yourself a little bit with the energies of Taurus versus Aries. I don't want to repeat all of that here because it would be redundant. But very briefly, what we saw when the North Node was transiting Taurus was there were many crises dealing with banking and finance. Banks collapsed, rents skyrocketed, as did real estate across the board, creating a housing crisis. Many people relocated to different homes, sometimes in far-flung locations. There was a lot of relocation. People moved from the cities to the country. Millions of people began working from their homes. The cost of food went through the roof. There were supply shortages, and so on and so on. All of these are themes or areas that are covered by Taurus. So going back to my description of the North Node, there's like this vortex of energy surrounding all those Taurian areas of life. The previous time that the North Node was in Taurus was between April of 2003 and December of 2004. So now, what can we expect with the North Node moving into Aries? The last time that happened was the end of December of 2004 through almost the end of June of 2006. And again, this will commence July 17th of 2023 through January 11th of 2025. As I described in my episode about Jupiter transiting Taurus and Jupiter transiting Aries, Aries is a very fiery, masculine, cardinal energy. It is very bold and decisive. It can be brave, courageous, and athletic. In lower expressions, it can act spontaneously without thinking a lot about the consequences or other people. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is known as the god of war. So it deals with combat and conflict and aggression in lower expression. It is hot and dry. As I explained in my previous episode, people with a strong Mars influence can be very opinionated, combative, and they don't hold back from expressing their opinions or views, whether anyone else likes them or not. So I expect that on the global stage, we will see a lot of this very aggressive, assertive, masculine style energy expressed in global affairs or in politics. It can be very rash, like shoot first, ask questions later. On the positive side, this energy is very useful for people who need to stand up for themselves and to have some backbone, because there are times when we need to stand up for ourselves and not let other people walk all over us. But because this energy is going to be affecting the whole planet for this 18-and-a-half-month period, I expect there's going to be a lot of contentious actions and activities and events that we will have to endure. It could even result or manifest as an abnormally active period for conflict. And yes, Mars rules the military. So there is the potential for that. A lot of butting heads. Where the South Node is going to be is in Libra, the opposite sign of Aries. And as I explained, the South Node has kind of a diminishing effect. Libra rules things like diplomacy. Libra likes people to get along. It seeks peace and harmony between people. With that energy being diminished and the Aries energy being amplified, we will probably see that diplomacy and settling disputes amicably is more challenged. Again, Libra seeks balance, and Aries is extremely independent and focused more on itself and doing whatever it wants to do whenever it feels like it. Mars energy tends to express in short, intense bursts. Think a boxer or a sprinter as opposed to a marathon runner. Under a Mars influence, you can have tons of energy and then it just dissipates and you need to recharge. It doesn't have extraordinary amounts of stamina. So we may see a lot of things that blow up that everyone is paying attention to, and then it just suddenly fizzles out. Nonetheless, if countries or individuals take very strong and decisive action, it will almost certainly provoke a response from whoever the offended party is. So it can trigger undesirable or escalating outcomes. As I also said, Mars is hot and dry. So I would expect that we might see a trend towards drought or lack of rain or excessive heat. Such conditions, of course, increase the likelihood of wildfires. Aries is, after all, a fire sign. Destructive fires may be a notable theme during this period. As it turns out, we are on the cusp right now of moving into an El Niño state globally, which is where temperatures tend to rise for a few years above norms. And in a La Niña, which is what we're leaving, temperatures tend to be suppressed a bit. What happens during an El Niño is that we tend to get more storms and intense winds because more energy is being released into the global climate from the oceans. It's cyclical. Warmer oceans, of course, can contribute to stronger hurricanes or typhoons. I just find it interesting that just as the North Node is about to move into Aries, we are on the cusp of an El Niño period. It's a bit concerning because the La Niña period we're leaving was actually hotter than what people were expecting. So the concern is the El Niño event will be even hotter still. So if we do enter a period where it is hot and dry, that is going to have an effect on agriculture. There may be water shortages. We could see things like rapid glacial melt and things like that. Again, during this 18-and-a-half-month period. So those who live in already water-stressed or storm-prone areas will probably want to pay attention to this and prepare accordingly. Political and social disputes are likely to be more intense and less likely to be easily resolved through diplomacy, as I said. Compromise will be less likely. I'm an Aries rising. I understand this energy quite well. I handle it quite well now, but when I was young, I had a very hot temper. So I'm familiar with this energy. Mars is great for getting things done. Another point just to consider is, like I said, that this is a very masculine energy. So in kind of the cultural areas, things like movies and entertainment and things like that, I would anticipate that we will see more overt masculine themes kind of dominate, and that there will be a general appeal to strong, determined, masculine type personalities or figures. When I think of like a physical Aries, I think someone like Bruce Lee. They're not necessarily huge. They tend to be very lean and sinewy, but very determined and very focused and concentrated. Of course, the color we associate with Mars is red. That's the color of anger and that intense energy, fire. Also, in the world of fashion and styles, we might see this reflected there as well, where the fashions become more masculine or military-like in their cut. And you might see women wearing clothing that was more traditionally male or things like that. I think like back to the 1980s with the broad shoulders. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but just watch for more masculine themes in the fashion world and in style and decor. In mundane astrology, traditionally the first house, which Aries rules by default, reflects the country and its inhabitants themselves as a whole, their general condition of prosperity and health, or the reverse. So we can infer that there's going to be a lot of emphasis or focus on the people and the state of the country and whether or not people are prosperous and healthy or happy or pissed off. Of course, the chart of every nation will be unique, and Aries may occur in a different house. However, this will apply overall. Another very important thing about the nodes is that eclipses always fall within a few degrees of either the south node or the north node. That's another reason why the movement of the nodes is so important, because where these eclipses occur, it tends to pinpoint very decisive, intense, substantial, and meaningful events. So over the next 18 and a half months, most of the eclipses will be occurring in Aries or Libra. So if you have significant planets or points in Aries or Libra, you'll be wanting to pay attention to this. For Libra, it's kind of like a period of being in the background a bit. It's a good time to review and let go of the past. And that can even mean doing past life work or something like that. It's not generally going to be a great time for Libra to be pushing ahead. This is more like house cleaning. It's a bit more of an introverted energy. I'm not saying that you can't get things done if you're a Libra. I'm just saying it is less favorable than normal. This will be transiting my first house personally, and I kind of know what to expect a bit. I might be coming across a bit larger than life. My energy might be intense. There might be more of a focus on myself personally and my own personal needs and ambitions. I might be a little less concerned about other people and what's on their agenda versus mine, that kind of thing. There will, of course, be eclipses in my first house and in my seventh, which is the house of relationships. I'm not in a relationship right now, so that's not necessarily concerning, but if I was, I might be concerned about that. Following through on that line of thought, Aries is a very independent energy, and the south node will be transiting the seventh house of close personal relationships. So we could see a trend during this period of people preferring to be single, and the eclipses that occur in Libra may result in some relationships ending. Something to bear in mind. The only notable conjunction that will occur during this time with the North Node is that it will conjunct Chiron. And Chiron deals with wounding. It's known as the wounded healer. Again, I'll put dates on the screen. That will occur on February 19th of 2024 at 16:45 Aries. Of course, I can't predict exactly what will happen then, but the theme of wounding will be up. Now, Chiron tends to deal with wounding that occurs in our formative years generally, but issues of wounding and healing, reconciliation, and things like that may be highlighted during that period. So I didn't want this to be too long, so I'll leave it there. I'll of course put a link in the episode description to my episode on Jupiter transiting Taurus, which discusses Aries and Taurus quite a bit, if you want more detail about those energies. And you can basically take what I've said about Chiron and blend it with that information and arrive at your own conclusions. Again, the main themes are hot and dry, aggressiveness, assertiveness, raw masculinity, people being outspoken and inconsiderate at times, being more self-oriented, and of course, combative, argumentative, if not actual warfare, or lots of skirmishes as a means of settling disputes, as opposed to diplomacy. Please see my sets of intentions that you can incorporate into your spiritual practice. I encourage everyone to use those. They seem to be working. If you've had a reading with me and you want an update, I can provide an update based on some of these transits or something else that you're dealing with that's very specific. Some of you may be interested in my energetic protection and clearing classes that also addresses karmic issues. I'll put links to all of this in the episode description, including if you're interested in a reading from me. You can support me by liking my videos, sharing, commenting helps as well. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for everything. Take care. All the best. And I'm looking forward to talking with you again soon. Bye for now.